Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias, I have to say, as well, as we're in Barcelona. And I'm really excited to talk about the role of education in an inclusive and innovative economy this morning. Now, I'm excited about this because I've always been excited about all things technological. So this is me when I was a little bit younger than I am this morning. Aged 11, passing an A-level in computer science. And it's something that I've been really, really excited about. I've loved taking things apart and putting them back together since I was about 4, which is the age I am in that photo on the left. I think it's always good to have a baby photo in your presentations. It makes you seem more real, more human. Now, the interesting thing about me, though, is that despite the fact that I love technology, love taking things apart, putting them back together, love doing maths, I really, really hated my technology lessons at school. I really, really hated my maths lessons at school. In fact, I hated quite a lot of my education, despite the fact that we can say I was pretty good at specific parts of it. And when we talk about the importance of knowledge and of education, in having an innovative economy, I want to talk specifically about STEM this morning. So when we talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and maths, and about innovation, this is, to me, what an innovative economy looks like. So I'm from the UK, don't know if you can tell from my accent, and in the UK specifically now, we won't talk about the events of last week, the word starting with B, the swear word, I won't mention that. But our GDP and the GDP across the EU, and across Europe has all been driven in recent years by this, innovation, this use of technology. So here's one example from Sweden. Has anyone seen this before? No? Yes, a couple of you have. So this is a bicycle helmet. You can see here in this slide. On the left-hand side is the bicycle helmet. Can you all see a bicycle helmet on the left-hand side? No? A bicycle helmet? Can you see one on the left-hand side? No, you can't. So this is the bicycle helmet here around her neck. It looks like a scarf, and this is an innovative product called Hedy, where on impact, the bicycle helmet then inflates, and it's what we have on the right-hand side. Wow, right? Incredible. It's exactly what I say. And this is a great product. This is wow. It solves the problem of helmet hair, which for those of you that are cyclists, you've seen before. But it also, very importantly, has a chip inside the helmet that measures and is almost like a black box for you during your cycling accident. So if you are hit, then we can record what speed you were going at, what the impact was like, the direction, all those kinds of data and all that kind of information. So when we talk about innovative economy, when I talk about innovation in the economy, this is what I talk about. It's new products, it's technology being used in ways that solves problems, and also that makes us money, because I guess that's what drives the economy, right? So when we talk about STEM, which is being science, technology, engineering, and maths, and MINT, for anyone here who's German. Anyone auf Deutsch here? Hello, guten Morgen. When we talk about STEM and when we talk about MINT, for me, it is all about this innovation. It's about knowing your customers, and it's primarily about solving problems. Now, most of you here are within education. Anyone here works within education? Just testing whether we're awake. I've been told you're all educators here. I like audience participation as well. It's how I know you're listening. So when we talk about this in education, typically when we talk about science education and maths education and even engineering at the kind of higher levels, science is about logic, it's about facts, and it's about new discovery. Sadly, it doesn't always get conveyed to students in the classroom. So when you talk about science lessons, about maths lessons, we hear it a lot. I hear it a lot in my role. Oh, I'm rubbish at maths. Oh, I was rubbish at science. Oh, I hated maths. Oh, I hated science. And there's a problem, because science isn't rubbish, Maths isn't boring, right? But the way that we present it, the way that we teach it, needs to be a way that's engaging, without losing the fact that it is about the logic, the facts, and the new discovery. When we talk about teaching and education and uptake, apologies, these are all kind of more European stats than global stats. But only 29 in 1,000 of those holding a bachelor's or first degree actually hold it in information and communication technologies, compared to 95 in 1,000 men. These are stats from a couple years back from the EU. Participation in STEM at higher levels of education and in industry, for women particularly, which is what I'm wanting to talk to you about today, is incredibly low, and has been low and declining over the last 30 years. We've seen this kind of trend that it's something that is not something that's taken up by many people, is not seen as cool, but even more so, women aren't taking it up. And that's a great trouble, and that's a great struggle, because you have fewer and fewer innovative products, like the one that I showed you before, that are coming through into the market and that are helping to drive our economy. We have fewer and fewer problems that we're able to solve as well if we don't have both sides, male and female, engaging in STEM, having those science, facts, and logic, and love of discovery, and being able to build new products. And all of this despite the fact that women are actually pretty good at these subjects, and have actually been pretty influential when we talk about STEM and innovation. So again, I've got a bit of a game here. Like I said, I like audience participation, so we're going to play another game. Does anyone recognize who is in the top left of my slide? There's a hand up there, yes? Do you want to shout it out? Correct. A round of applause for Hedy Lamarr. I won't ask you who she is. I'm going to just say that to save your voice. This is Hedy Lamarr, the first ever computer programmer. So 200 years ago, roughly, in England, yay, England, this is Hedy Lamarr, who was a mathematician and wrote the first ever computer program. And it was to calculate a series, I think, of Bernoulli numbers. But she did that 200 years ago. So the first ever developer, the first ever computer programmer that we've ever heard, even though we might, talk about Mark Zuckerberg and all sorts of people nowadays, this was the first, this was where it started. Does anyone recognize the top right image? Yes? Hedy Lamarr, another round of applause. I like this audience. So this is Hedy Lamarr. Some of you may recognize her as a Hollywood actress. Yes, a couple of you. She kind of looks like a Hollywood actress anyway in that photo, even if you didn't realize she was a Hollywood actress. Many of you may also know, or most of you here will have heard of either Wi-Fi or Bluetooth in this room. Yeah, some of you might even be on the Wi-Fi now, right? So Hedy Lamarr was the co-inventor of something called spread spectrum frequency hopping, which is the underlying technology that we have and that we use nowadays for Bluetooth and for Wi-Fi. So you can thank Hedy that you're on the Wi-Fi anytime you are using Wi-Fi. Bottom left, does anyone recognize who that is? And she's the odd one out on this slide for a particular reason. No one recognized her. Okay, so this is sad. So she's the odd one out because she's the only one that's alive on this slide. That is Stephanie Shirley, otherwise known as Steve Shirley, who was born in Austria while the war was happening, so it was actually part of Kindertransport, and ended up in the UK. And in the 60s, she started what's widely regarded as one of the first distributed software houses. So she was a mathematician. She worked, I think, in the UK Post Office, got a bit bored of her job, and then realized actually, there are many better ways that she could be using her mathematical knowledge and her growing computer science knowledge. So she would hire women. So in the 60s, I guess some of you, I don't think anyone in this room remembers the 60s, maybe. But in the 60s, she would take, if you're a woman who has any kind of education and give birth, it's not for you to continue working. So those women would be at home. So she'd hire kind of ex-mathematicians who would write code at their kitchen tables in the UK and kind of post it in or whatever it would be. So they all wrote code. And they worked on projects like the Black Box for Concorde. They worked on a lot of train timetables. They worked on all kinds of different projects. And she did that in the 60s. And it was a great social enterprise. So all the women that worked for her, when she eventually sold the company, became millionaires because of the size of the projects that they've been working on. She'd given them all of them shares. So she's a tech pioneer that we have that's still alive. And finally, the bottom right, I won't ask. In fact, does anyone know who she is? Since we're in Spain, okay, I'm glad. Who is this? Oh.
That thing, that it is there, that it is the precursor of Wikipedia, and it's oral, right?
Right, so this is a round of applause. She is Spanish. I was hoping someone here might recognize who she is, because as the lady says, she is Spanish. So she is your countrywoman, for those of you that are Spanish here. Her name is Angela Ruiz Roble. And what she has there is widely regarded as the precursor to the e-book. So that she filed the patent in 1949. She has a lot in common with those of you in the room, because she was an educator herself. She was a teacher. And she felt bad for her students who were having to carry textbooks a lot. So kind of used this technology and said, hey, why don't I create something where you're able to carry around your textbooks in an easier format? So that is the first ever e-book there before your eyes, filed in 1949. So we have a rich history, actually, of women in science, technology, engineering, maths, using their knowledge of these things to solve problems and kind of have their own hand in an innovative economy, we can all say, from the different projects that they all worked on. So we definitely need to make sure that we have women and have that kind of gender included in STEM, because they are great at solving problems. So those are just 4 examples. Also, sometimes women are part of the solution to the problem. So I've got 2 examples on this slide of, again, technologies where if we didn't include women, things wouldn't have gone right. It wouldn't have been able to contribute to our economy. Top left, that is me. Does anyone recognize who I'm stood next to? No. OK. Some of you may have heard of a company called Apple before. A couple of you, maybe anyone in the room? Again, I'm testing if you're awake. No one's awake at the moment. Most of you might even own an iPhone and might have used an iPhone or an iPad before. If you long press the home button, what happens? Siri. Yeah, so if I say Siri, do most of us recognize what Siri is? No? If you don't know what Siri is, that's fine. I can kind of give an example, I don't know. If I long press now. Hi Siri, can you give me directions to Barcelona?
The 4th of July, 2016.
Great. Live demos, eh? So that was Siri talking on my phone. Now Siri is a personal assistant, as it were, just so I can be kind of balanced. You've got Cortana, if anyone here has a Microsoft or Android Microsoft device. And it's based on voice recognition. So if I talk to Siri, Siri is supposed to hear what I've said and translate it back into words, and then go and do a search, do some kind of artificial intelligence, and come back and speak back to me. I said, give me directions to Barcelona. You're all here when I said that. Siri thought I said, what day is it now? Which is great. Early Siri, so it's not come on as far as it could have done, but early voice recognition software pretty much worked like that. You'd say one thing, it didn't really quite understand what you'd said, and then kind of gave you something else back. It wasn't until, and we've actually had this technology around for decades, voice recognition, and it wasn't until the teams who were working on this technology realized that they needed a diversity of voices, i.e. they needed a couple female voices, they needed a couple different accents, they needed a diversity of voices that they were putting into this software. It wasn't until they realized that then voice technology was able to take off. So it's something that we've had for decades, that actually, by not including male and female, not including high-pitched, low-pitched, different accents, the technology didn't take off. And it's only now, really, that we have Siri and can talk to Siri almost as if you are talking to my friend John there in the slides. The second example I want to give of why you need to include both is down here at the bottom of the slide. I won't ask you what it is, because you should all know what those are, airbags and seatbelts. What I will ask you to do is to imagine that I have, on my right-hand side, your left, I guess, stage left, an average man stood here. Kind of use our imaginations. And I'd like you to imagine that I have an average girl stood on this hand side. So this is the average man, this is the average girl. Average girl, average man. Are we all still with me? Average man, average girl. OK, I'm going to ask 2 questions. Normally, I do call up an average man and an average girl, and we try not to offend them. But today, as it's in our imaginations, we can be as rude as we like. So this is an average man, this is an average girl. In your mind, in your imaginations, is the average man taller or shorter than the average girl? So he's taller, right? So the average man is taller than the average girl, right? So maybe just a little bit taller than me. She's a little bit shorter than me. OK. Second question. Is the average man heavier or lighter than the average girl? Lighter? Heavier? Some of you have a great imagination. I love that you're breaking through the stereotypes over there. So the average man is heavier and taller than the average girl. And to some extent, he's heavier and taller than the average woman, okay? We agreed? In here, if we take out the extremities and, yeah? They're on the bell curve. We'll get that. We're all educators. We understand that. So they're different, okay? The average man is taller. The average man is heavier than the average girl and the average women. And so when they first developed seatbelts, when they first worked on this great new device that was going to save all our lives, of course, the seatbelts saved the lives of the men that were testing it, but killed the women and children who were helping test it. Not good, right? So by not including women in what you're building, even if you don't have women working with you on solving those problems, it's a matter of life and death. Yeah, all of a sudden we get quite serious. So it's important that we do have them in both. And so how do we do this? What can we do as educators? How can we make sure that we bring girls and women along with us on this journey into STEM, on this journey into solving these problems, on this journey into innovation? And there's two major things that I think sometimes we forget, and sometimes it's quite difficult to work on and to play up. The first is creativity. So it's often pitched that, if you're quite a creative person, it means that you're quite arty and you're quite into your language and, that kind of creativity. And almost, if you're not very creative, science is the place for you to be. Has anyone ever seen that or encountered that before, heard that before? Maybe a couple of you? That's not true. Science is all about discovery. It's about creating new things, right? We wouldn't have those helmets. We wouldn't have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth if someone hadn't said, I know this. What happens if I put those two together? We wouldn't have the microwave. There's so many things that we wouldn't have if people hadn't been creative around their science and their knowledge and their facts. And so we have to make sure that as we're teaching science, technology, engineering, and maths, as we're teaching these things, maths is incredibly creative. There's a lot of things that you can do with your maths knowledge. There's a lot of things that you can create, and you can test your new creations using maths. So we have to make sure that we include creativity and show examples of it. So I've got two examples on this slide here of a young lady called Ishikare who made this device that helps mobile phones charge a lot quicker, which is great because if you talk to any young person, most of them love their mobile phones. Yes, no, I don't know how many of you are educating young people. They do, they love their phones. I'm a young person, I've still got my phone here with me. The other thing, example that we've got here, is something called Tech Will Save Us. So I don't know how many of you have heard of these kits or have seen these kits before. But again, they're science and tech-based kits, and there'll be loads of examples that you will have seen where actually you're creatively teaching someone about whether it's circuits or about water detection or about whatever else it might be, using a creative element. You're allowing them to create using the knowledge that they have. And it's quite important to make sure that you do have that creativity and that you are pitching science, technology, engineering, maths, all of that stack as creative. Some of you may have heard of STEAM before. I know someone definitely has, because there's a poster outside talking about STEAM, which is a science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths. And it's nice to include the arts there, but even without the A, it is an incredibly creative field to be in, and we need to make sure that we're teaching as such. And the second thing is altruism, which I don't think we get to enough as well within the syllabuses and the curricula that we have. So it's incredibly altruistic to be a scientist. Altruism is this notion of helping others, solving problems, but kind of almost selflessly helping others. So we do a lot of work with young people, with young girls in particular, and a lot of them come and say, I'm great at science, I'm great at doing all these things, so I'm going to be a doctor. And I say, oh, great, fantastic. Why is it that you want to be a doctor? And they're like, because I'm good at science and I really want to help people. And the only way I can do that is to be a doctor. Wrong answer. So doctor is one example of things that you can do. But most things that you're working on within STEM, most of those careers, if we're talking about engineers or whatever it might be, is incredibly altruistic. Here are two examples that I like to give the girls when I speak to them. So top right, does anyone recognize these girls? You do? So these are 4 girls at a maker fair in Nigeria. Yes, there we go, I'm not lying. And they have turned 1 liter, I think it was 1 liter of urine into 6 hours of electricity, which is crazy. It's incredible. Wow. I can see a couple people saying, wow. Yeah, it is wow. They've done that, and it's immediately obvious how if you're working anywhere in, let's say, in the village or in kind of rural areas in Nigeria, how being able to turn your own urine into electricity can help a lot of people. Right? You don't have to be a doctor in that situation to be able to help others by giving a supply of electricity in such an area. And it's incredible where, even just giving that one example, the faces change. Oh my goodness. So even though I love science and the maths and all of this kind of stuff, and I hate blood, I can still help people. You don't have to be a doctor. The second example I give down the bottom left is almost similar to what we were talking about with Literacy Bridge, but slightly different, where Intuit is a US company who normally do accountancy software, and what they did was they tasked their workers, or a couple of their workers, a couple of teams, to help this set of farmers in rural India. So 500,000 farmers, and they used something called the SMS. Anyone here ever heard of an SMS? Yeah? You laugh. The girls don't use SMSs anymore. It's all WhatsApp and Snapchat and Viber. But they use SMS, so they use a 2G signal and SMSs to open up market information for these Indian farmers, which was great because you have arbitrage for any of you that do economics. Farmers made more money. Yay, rich farmers, sort of. In addition to the farmers making more money, they saw that the literacy rates of children, in particular girls in those villages, then went up, which again is a nice knock-on effect for something like the SMS, which we all giggle at and laugh at and kind of have almost forgotten being able to use. So it's incredibly creative and altruistic, and we need to make sure that as we're teaching, we are showing that side of it. So what we do with the STEMettes, which is the organisation that I run in the UK and across Ireland, is we support teachers. Because I know it's incredibly difficult as an educator to be able to fit all of this in and also get your targets and meet everything else that you're supposed to do. So we run extracurricular activities outside of school, sometimes school on school days. So today the team are at a school outside London teaching 160 girls to build mobile apps. We also run events over the weekends. We run events over summer holidays, because the summer holidays are coming up now in the UK as well. And for us, it is every event, every interaction that we have with the girls is all about showing them the creative and the altruistic side of STEM, and app building and website building and 3D printing and design and all that kind of stuff. So we make sure that we do it, and it's almost as if you're trying to include both sides within your STEM education, you need to be able to take that time out. You need to be able to invest some time in the extracurricular, almost like you need to add sugar when you're giving a child medicine. It's almost how we look at it. So even if you can't do it in the classroom, we're able to do it outside. All of our events are free for the girls. They're always fun, and there's always food for the girls, because we find that free food, people like free food. Yeah, in particular girls and their parents and their influencers and the other people that are helping them make these decisions about their STEM. And we open them up quite a lot to different role models as well, which is the other secret ingredient and the other part of the formula, which is fairly important for you as educators as well, to make sure that you're aware of the role models and you know of the Stephanie Shirleys that you have in your country, of the Angela Ruiz that you have in your country as well. Only one lady here knew who she was, but to make sure that you're including that as well in the way that you're educating. So even if you can't include creativity and altruism, you are showing both sides, both genders, all the different types of role models that you have. And that's fairly important for all of us to do. So I find it interesting when I give these talks. Often, sometimes if you're men, some of you are men in this room, anyone here? Raise your hand if you're a guy. Yeah, again, some guys are sleeping. But if you're a man, sometimes it can feel like it's not something that you're empowered to do. So for us, it's quite important to make sure that actually everyone understands that it's for all of us to do together for the benefit of all of us. So this isn't the, yay, girls against everybody else. This is very much so. I want something around everyone pulling their weight and everyone feeling empowered to be able to make a change and to include others to make sure that we can drive our economy, but also ourselves as humanity. So these are just some examples of our ambassadors, maybe, that you might want to call them, kind of senior male people within the industry who are working alongside us and making sure that we can do this. So this was part of International Women's Day pledge for clarity earlier this year. And I think it's really important for all of us to make sure that we're able to cut our stereotypes as we're doing this. So who sees a princess? Who sees an engineer? It's really important to make sure that we cut our stereotypes, and we are really aware of ourselves, of our unconscious biases as we're teaching, but also of those of others, right? And we feel empowered to call them out and say, hey, you know, there's something wrong or there's something interesting if at the beginning of the term you have 2 girls in your class, and by the end of the term you have no girls in your class every year, right? There's something interesting or you want to be able to also support and reward and recognize and spread best practice if, on the converse, you have someone who has, you know, 50% of girls in their technology class or in their maths class or in their science class at higher education. You want to make sure that you're recognizing what they're doing, how are they teaching, is there this emphasis on creativity and altruism that you can learn from and that you can take on? But you also want to make sure that you're able to cut your own stereotypes. And I say this as a warning, actually. So there's a project called Everyday Sexism that some of you may have seen. If not, look it up. It's online. It's on Twitter. They've got a website. And it's supposed to be a site where they collect, you know, everyday cases of sexism, where people feel like they've been attacked because of their gender or their sex specifically. And it's always shocking and sad to see how many of those are from young girls in their science lessons, being said certain things by teachers who should be on their side, or even by peers who maybe shouldn't be on their side, or don't have to be on their side, but there should be at least be a teacher there to say, no, it's not right, you can't say girls are rubbish at this, they shouldn't be in your classroom. And I think as educators, we do need to make sure that we are there and we are the ones that impact. There's no one else that's going to stop that happening in the classroom. You can't control what happens outside of your classroom or in society necessarily, but you can control what happens in your classroom, in your school and in your institution. So we need to make sure that we're cutting down on those stereotypes. We also, and this is just another one I'll put up as well just because it's a bit funny. A couple of you are laughing. So the boss, this is Dilbert. Anyone seen Dilbert before? Right, so the boss comes in, pointy-head boss, they call him. The interface needs to be so simple that your mother could use it. And he says, my mother taught herself Ruby on Rails over a weekend. And he said, then imagine someone else's mother. He says, can I imagine a sexist imbecile? Again, don't be part of the problem. Don't be a bystander. Call people out when this happens. Call, you know, any level that you're dealing with. Also, role models. So this is the other example, or another slide that I give all the time. It was sort of a covert picture that I took, which is why it's slightly blurry. But this is a photo. This is a photo of a wall display in a school that we visited a couple years ago. And this is in their science and maths department. Okay? We've got Euler, we've got Archimedes, we've got Archimedes again, we've got Euler again, we have Brunel, we have all kinds of people there. We have a kind of phrase in the UK, pale, male, and stale. For those of you that maybe don't get it, they're all largely white, they're all old/dead, and they're all male. The sad thing about this photo is that this is an all-girls school. You know, if there's anywhere where you should be able to at least try and find a couple of female role models, you know, science of all those years wasn't just women. I've shown you enough dead people here this morning for you to know that there were other people that were alive while these people were alive working on these. It's not acceptable for us to continue to go to those same role models and continue to spew that. And this is subconscious. This is just a wall display that they go past every day in a girls' school. There's no females there at all. That's not acceptable. Make sure you don't have that in your school. You've been warned if I ever come and visit you. Finally, I want to give a final note for you as educators, because this was all supposed to be kind of help for you, on the importance of having girl-only spaces. So this is something that's been seen as quite controversial. And I don't know about your countries, but in the UK, there are quite a lot of schools who are now, they call it diamond teaching. And it's almost like a hack or almost like a short-term fix while they work out some of the other issues that I've talked about. But you know, even with the SEMETs, our events are girls-only / mainly girls. And it's quite a controversial one to say, actually, no, we want to take the girls away, and we want to give them a great experience with STEM separately from the boys. But it is about having safe spaces. So I'm going to end on this. You maybe want to have a look into it a little bit more for yourself and how feasible it might be. But there's a lot of importance, there's a lot of benefit to be gained from having these female role models, but also having the girls and allowing them to explore the creativity and the altruism of STEM separately from boys. And I'm not saying this for life. Again, I'm not advocating, we divide the earth in half and the women live on one side and the guys live on the other side. Of course not. But I think sometimes it is quite important to be able to take girls out of that space and allow them to explore it without some of the other kind of societal norms and societal pressures that we see. This is one example, not of ours, but of someone else who's done this. This is a group of 5-year-olds in Wales who have a computer club. And they get to go around, visit different places. In the middle, at the bottom, they're making their own computers, and they can kind of see what's inside, and it's all cut and stick. But it's quite important or quite interesting and quite powerful, actually, to see a room of 50 girls all making their own mobile apps, coding, and helping each other. And for you as educators, it might be something that sometimes you want to explore doing. There are quite a few schools in the UK who teach maths separately and teach computer science separately up to 16. So it might be something that you want to explore having, because it is fairly important and it's a fairly short-term fix that has a really long-lasting impact. And so that might be another way that you're able to encourage more girls into the innovative end of what we're doing. And I think my time is up, so I will end there. Thank you very much.